name is Vic Mignogna. It's much easier to say than it looks. I've been voice acting for almost 20 years. I've done over 300 different anime series and video games. Some of the, I guess, more notable would be Dragon Ball Z, Fullmetal Alchemist, Pokemon, Digimon, Vampire Knight. I shouldn't have started because you really One Piece, a lot. Currently I'm working on a lot of shows, Digimon, I'm working on Ruby, and as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, about 5 years ago, I started and exec produced a web series that was my childhood dream come true to pay tribute to the original series of Star Trek. We rebuilt the entire soundstage of the original series to spot-on accuracy. Then I cast a bunch of my friends and brought a bunch of technicians together, and we made 11 full-length, hour-long episodes in the original series of Star Trek style, and it has been extremely well received. I've been contacted unsolicited by people like Greg Nicotero, who created The Walking Dead, who is a big Star Trek fan, Ronald D. Moore, who wrote for Next Gen and created Battlestar Galactica, among a lot of other series, big fans. So it's been very well received. And it's my, like I said, it's my love letter to Star Trek for inspiring me when I was 9 and 10, 11 years old. So to work on that series was a great thrill. But that's me in a nutshell.
Do we have a question you want to start off with?
Well, who will be the first?
If not, I gotta ask something. So.
Well, I asked it. Now, I know you did work on Persona, like the series.
Yes, Junpei.
Yeah. So tell me what brings you, what made you decide to, what attracted you to?
Well, I'll be honest with you. You know, if you ask almost any voice actor I know, any of the people you'll talk to here this weekend, if you ask them what attracted you to and fill in the blank, they're just going to say, well, I just auditioned. Like, I just wanted to act. I wanted to, I auditioned because I wanted to work. Most of us don't know a great deal, if anything, about anime series until we get cast in them. Occasionally, you may know a little bit about a show. You may have a kind of a general knowledge of a show. But there are very few exceptions where, like, voice actors, like, I want to do that character in that show. It just doesn't really happen that often. Plus, in a production company like Funimation, they are working on so many projects simultaneously that voice actors just get called into audition for things, and they most likely would have no idea what it is they're auditioning for until they get cast, and the director kind of fills them in on the show. And that's the way it was with Persona. I didn't know anything about it, didn't know anything about Junpei. The company that dubbed it was familiar with my work, and they called me in and said, we want you to play this character. And I said, great, I love work. And so I came to love the character, and I really, really enjoyed every incarnation of Persona. But most of us don't know much, about series and video games and projects before we get into them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we just marathoned all of FMA Brotherhood.
Oh, nice.
Just recently, and I watched it before, but she hadn't. She really liked the original. So my question for you is, how was it coming back into the role of Ed? And like, because it's different. So like.
It was a great thrill. I was very sad when the original was over. I loved it so much. I mean, I even made a little live-action parody film with the other voice actors cosplaying as our characters. I loved Fullmetal. And when it was over, I was sad. I was glad that it ended strong. You know what I mean? It didn't just kind of peter out and get dumb at the end. It just had a really strong ending point. And when I heard that they were making more, I was initially thrilled. And then I got worried because the first one was so good. And as sequels often do, they're not good. You know, they don't come anywhere near the quality of the first incarnation of whatever it is. So I was a little worried that it wouldn't be as good. But then when I found out that it was going to follow the manga, that's a good sign. Because even during the original series, all during the original Fullmetal series, fans would come up to me at conventions and say, I love Fullmetal Alchemist. Have you read the manga? And I would say, no. And they're like, it's awesome. So I always had in the back of my mind that the manga story was really awesome. And when I heard that Brotherhood was going to follow the manga, I'm like, okay, well it's a good sign. Maybe that's a good omen. And it was. Most people like Brotherhood better than the original, which is definitely an honor, because the original was wonderful. So to struggle between which one's better, that's a good thing. That's a good problem to have. You know? Come on, ask me anything. Ask me those seedy questions you're afraid to
Hold
ask.
on, Joe, go ahead. That's not actually that Joe, but it's Joe.
Yes, sir.
Do you prefer anime or video game more?
Anime. Anime because you tend to tell a better story. You know, video games have good stories, don't get me wrong. The point is playing the game. Whereas an anime series, you know, it's just about the story. And I really enjoy that. I also don't like to yell a lot. And there's typically a lot of yelling and fighting in game sounds in video games. And I'll do it. And I'm freaking Broly. So, Lord knows I've done plenty of yelling and fighting in DBZ, but I enjoy the anime series. I enjoy a series, the storytelling aspect of it, and the not yelling as much part.
Okay, well, you mentioned a little earlier about how you feel like science fiction is getting much more dystopian. I don't know how much you follow current anime. I certainly don't really follow it that much, but do you feel the same is kind of true about anime, and how do you feel the anime industry in Japan has changed over the last 20 or so years since you've been
Wow,
started?
interesting question. I have not noticed that trend in the anime industry. I don't watch anime apart from the stuff I work on, just because there's no time. The stuff that I've worked on, I've enjoyed. And I get the sense from sticking my head in different people's studios at production companies and looking what they're working on, that there's kind of still something for everybody, you know? They're still making funny, wacky shows. They're still making girl harem shows. They're still making, you know, bishy boy shows. They're still making scary shows. They're still making hentai. They're still making, you know what I mean? Like, they're still doing all of it. I don't know that I would be well informed enough to be able to chart any kind of a change in the industry.
I was curious about that because John Lennon was once asked what type of music he likes. He said, I really, you know, I like the old time stuff, but I'm really too busy making stuff to listen to stuff anymore.
Yeah, I don't, there, you know, of all the shows that I've done, I can literally count on my two hands the number of shows that I've been in that I've seen in their entirety. Because there's just not time. And I know there are a lot of great shows out there. I hear people talking about them all the time. But, you know, as long as I'm able to work, I want to do that. So there's just not really a lot of time. Yes, sir.
Just want to ask you, are you aware of the Fullmetal Alchemist live action movie?
Yes, I am.
All right. Are you privy to it? Have you watched it?
Yes, I have.
How do you feel about it?
There were a lot of elements of it I really liked. I've become jaded, as I think we all have, over live action versions of anime. They just always seem to be dumb or just bad. They don't seem to capture whatever it was about the anime that was so cool. They changed too many things for no reason sometimes. You're like, why did you even change that? What was the point? You know? So I was hopeful that Full Metal would be maybe an exception, because I always thought it would make a great live action, especially with CGI visual effects being capable of what they're capable of now. I thought, man, you can do some cool stuff. So when I saw it, my first reaction was, oh my gosh, these settings, the visual look of the settings, the towns, the villages, the cities, looked like they were taken right out of the anime. I mean, they were amazing. They looked great. The costumes, amazing. Music, beautiful. Even the transmutation and alchemy effects were great. I loved them. They were great. I think Ed was too tall.
Yes.
And I think he was too old. To me, one of the most compelling elements of Fullmetal Alchemist were that they were two little boys that were thrust into this huge, dangerous world. And you felt for them. And the older you make the kids, the less that plays on your heart. You know what I mean? The less that works. And, you know, they cast some, like, J-pop star to play Ed. Okay, somebody somewhere thought that would be a good idea. I don't. I don't think it was probably the best choice. I would have cast a freaking 13-year-old boy. You know what I mean? Two boys. Young boys. And, like, he was taller than half the people in the movie. Like, when the general comes in, who turned out to be the bad guy, they're standing toe-to-toe, and he's shorter than Ed. Well, you just blew all your short jokes right there. Like, you know what I mean? For him to be taller than Hawkeye, and taller, you know what I mean? And one of the funniest moments is how he's this little kid who's got this chip on his shoulder whenever anybody makes a comment. Well, those jokes don't work when you put him in scenes with people that are taller, that are shorter than him. And I'm not sure why they did that. And then from a production standpoint, I wish it would have been faster. The pacing of it was rather slow, and a lot of it was in the performances of the actors. They would take forever to get a line out. Of course, the director's like, I can't cut. They're in the middle of saying their line. So he has to hang on these shots, and you string those together, and suddenly it's like, you know, the pacing of it just feels very slow. So those are some things that I would have changed had I been involved in it, but overall, I liked it a lot. I think it would be great if it were dubbed into English. I think that would be fun. Maybe that'll happen, maybe not, but it would be fun. It'd be fun to go back to Ed, you know, while I still can.
But Japan's film industry having such a history of great directors and great actors, why do you think they have so much trouble adapting these anime series into live action?
Well, I think that the whole movie industry is a joke, pretty much. I can't believe I just said that, but here's what I mean by that. The film industry used to be run by creative people who would make creative choices based on creative, powerful moments and storytelling. Now the movie industry is run by lawyers. It's run by financial people and attorneys who don't know squat about storytelling. That's why every movie's the same. That's why they just keep making Hulk 4 and Jetsons 3 and remake this and remake Footloose and remake this. Because the people, they're afraid to take any chances on anything new. I guarantee you they all have a pile of script ideas on their desk this high with original, out-of-the-box, amazing ideas, and they will not take a chance on it. They'll keep making the same, squeeze out the same little Play-Doh Fun Factory, cookie-cutter movie, formula crap, because what matters to them is just making money. And here's what's really frustrating to me. I'm sorry I'm getting on a soapbox here, but I wish everybody would boycott the movies for a weekend or two. Because here's what happens. The people that make movies know that you love movies, and you're going to go see a movie. How many people have gone to a multiplex and gone, okay, what do you want to see? Like, they didn't even know what they were going to watch, but they wanted to see a movie. So somebody there is going to get their $20, right? It may be crap, but somebody's. So they know that they can produce this minimal effort, cookie cutter, formula crap, and enough people are going to go watch it just because they like movies that they're going to make their money. And so why work harder to make something of real quality if you don't have to? You know? If we can make, you know, they sit around with their bean counters and they go, if we can make this movie for 150 million, we'll clear 400 million, boom. That's all they get. That's literally their idea of a success. It's not like, oh, you know, like, well, you'll get the top 10 movies of all time. You know, they're like powerful storytelling and beautiful works of art. But I think a lot of that is gone now. I think that the people that are running the studios are financial people and attorneys who literally just, you know, they follow a formula. And unfortunately, and that's why you see so many of the greatest films that you see now are independent films. They're made by independent studios who are not following that formula. Yes?
You talked earlier about bringing in some of your friends on with your
Yes.
Star Trek project, Star Trek Continues.
Yes.
And I've noticed certain voice actors that you brought in, like Chuck Huber, Elizabeth Maxwell.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you just talk about bringing in your pals?
Yeah, you know what, I'm glad you asked. You know, when I started Star Trek Continues, you guys, I wanted to make it with friends. I mean, you can throw money at anybody, right? You can hire somebody to do anything. If you give them money, oh yeah, I'll do it. But I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to hire guns to just do a job. I wanted to make this was my passion project. And I wanted to make it with people that were my friends, people that I loved. And so I cast friends of mine to play the roles. And even the guest stars, Lou Ferrigno and Aaron Gray and John Delancey and Colin Baker from Doctor Who and Jamie Bamber from Battlestar Galactica and Claire Kramer from Buffy and Gigi Edgley from Farscape. These are all people that I met signing autographs at conventions and became friends with. And I just called them one day and I said, hey, you know my Star Trek series? I've got this character in this episode coming up. And they're like, yeah, I'll do it. I mean, just like, it wasn't like, well, talk to my agent. How much are you offering? You know what I mean? What's the back end? None of that kind of talk. It was just, we're buddies, and I'm making this thing. You want to come and play with us? Heck yeah. And we would fly them down, and, you know, they would spend a week shooting this episode. We'd have the time of our lives. Rekha Sharma from Battlestar Galactica, who ended up in Discovery. We had a wonderful time. She and I did a show in Germany together, FedCon, Star Trek. And every one of these guest stars comes to me after the episode and says, can you write my character into another episode? Can I come back and I'd love to be in this again? Because we had such a wonderful time. The spirit of it, the atmosphere was so great. Everybody was there. And by the way, you can't make money from Star Trek because somebody owns Star Trek. I can't just make Star Trek and sell it. But that wasn't why I made it. I made it to pay tribute to this show that I love. So nobody makes any money. So now you're talking about people taking time out of their lives, away from their families, vacation from work, to come to our studio in Florida and spend 5, 6, 8, maybe 10 days shooting an episode for no money. Now you understand the commitment, the passion they must have for this project to be willing to do that. And those are the kind of people I was looking for. Anybody that I would have had to throw a ton of money at, that's not who I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who got the deeper value of what we were doing. And there are a lot of them. A lot of them.
Norman Jewison, the great producer, was what he said to his lifetime Oscar said, told the audience, look, go out there and make stories. You know, the money movies will come, you make the movies that make money, that's fine. But tell stories, do things people love.
And the thing is, you could do both. I mean, you could tell a great story and make a great movie that makes a lot of money. But it requires more talent and more time and effort. And a lot of people are like, why would I want to put that much effort into this when I can put this much in and make lots of money? So they get lazy. They get lazy and they realize they can do a little and make a big profit at it. So why would I put a bunch of extra effort and creative sweat and, pound out something that's really, why do that? Because it's awesome. Because it will outlast you. You know what I mean? It will outlive you. I'd like to think that Star Trek continues. Many people, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, 7 million plus views and growing every day. And there are people out there that are like, this is canon. Like, I consider this canon. And Rod Roddenberry, Gene Roddenberry's son, who's been on our show, has said publicly, I consider it canon. I think it's as good as, and in some respects, better than some of the original series episodes. And if my dad were alive today, I'm certain he would consider it canon. I would love to think that maybe someday in the future, people will watch the original series of Star Trek, and then they'll watch Star Trek Continues, and then they'll watch the movies, and it will become part of the Star Trek universe. And I will not have made one penny from it, and I will be the happiest person in the world to have contributed something to far outlast me.
That is just about.
No,
all
I
the
want to
time
talk to you
we have.
more. Ask questions. Some of you didn't ask anything. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
How'd you get started in anime voice acting?
I had been acting my whole life. Since you know why? Star Trek. Sorry, but there is a common
It
thread
always
here.
comes back to Star Trek.
It is. When I was 9, 10 years old, I discovered the original series of Star Trek, and I would watch it every day on a 19-inch black and white television, sitting on the floor in my living room. My mom and dad had just divorced. My mom and I lived in this apartment, and I would sit there every day and watch Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, and they would tell these stories that moved me. And one day I'm like, I want to do what they're doing. I want to act these characters that move people the way they move me. And I went to school and auditioned for a school play at 10, 12 years old, elementary school. And then I started auditioning for, any plays anywhere, like community theater, church productions, anything to get to act and do more and more of them. Star Trek started me on this acting path, and then by the time I got into college, I was doing all kinds of acting, theater and stuff, and then about 20 years ago in Houston, Texas, a guy said to me, you have a lot of acting experience, don't you? And I said, yeah. And he said, you should audition for this place. They buy these Japanese anime series and they're dubbing them into English and they need actors. That's all I heard. They need actors. And I went and auditioned and got cast in Street Fighter 2 a long time ago. And I thought it was kind of a one-time thing. I figured, well, that was a weird kind of a quirky one-time experience. And now I'm going to go back to writing music and producing music and video and film work. This is what I was doing at the time. And then they called me a few weeks later and said, hey, you want to do another show? I was like, sure. And then another, and another, and another. And then I met people from other studios and started working in other studios. And I was just really fortunate to get into the anime industry when it was still very small. And since then it has exploded, and I've just been blessed enough to be involved in it.
That was ADV, right?
Yes, ADV Films in Houston. Yeah.
That's classic.
Alrighty, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Come to my panel. And we'll talk about all
Definitely gotta check out someone's episode.